Hey, folks, welcome back to the Mañana No Mas podcast. I'm here with my friend today, Guillermo. Guillermo and I met just recently through LinkedIn. And unlike some of the other people that have been on the Mañana No Mas podcast, we just immediately hit it off and said, let's put some time together, put this conversation on tape and bring it to the people. And so that's what we're doing today. Guillermo has a company called RiderShare. RiderShare it's like the Airbnb of motorcycles to folks. And so I'm super interested in how he came up with the idea, started to grow the business, and then propagated it to what it is today. And obviously, we're looking to see that continue to grow. But it's also closely related to power sports. So I really want to kind of concentrate on all things two-wheel as well, because as you know, I do everything that's on two wheels. So with no further ado, Guillermo, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Thanks, Kurt. I'm doing great. You?
Oh, fantastic. Just like you, I went and got some coffee before the show. And people in my audience know the story already. But if you don't, I did some work on a Ducati for a customer. And when we delivered the Ducati back, she gave us a Jura coffee pot. I didn't even know what one was before. But now, like I'm a guy of meager means. And I've got a $2,500 coffee pot in the kitchen.
That's very nice.
Yeah. You can pull out your phone and be like, hey, make me a cappuccino, and the thing across the room starts making you a cappuccino. It's crazy.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, dude, it makes flat whites, macchiatos, cappuccinos. It does the whole thing.
Wow.
So we're a little on the spoiled side. It's when people say, oh, there's got to be more to the life than working on motorcycles. I'm like, yeah, there is. Getting a coffee pot for working on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
So do this, man. I like to go back a little bit with my guests and let's give the listeners a little bit of background on where you come from and kind of how you got into the path or the lane that you're in today.
Yeah. So I was born in Texas, but I grew up in Peru, hence the accent, and I moved back to the United States for college, and I started working in the auto industry. I missed surfing in Peru, so that's how I got into motorcycles, the adrenaline of a sport bike. And the adrenaline of a sport bike got me into an 80 miles per hour crash in Dallas, Texas. And that's when I could not afford to buy a replacement bike. And that's when I looked into renting motorcycles. I was like, I don't even use these that often, because you cannot commute to work when it's raining on a motorcycle, so you need to have a car anyways. I'm just gonna rent it every other weekend, and that's when I discovered that renting a motorcycle costs more than $200 per day, and that's absurd, So at the time, I worked in risk management in data analytics, and so I thought, we can probably do a peer-to-peer rental model, cut the costs, use my background to minimize the insurance risk, and keep the bikes as safe as possible. And so it took many years, but eventually we launched the company in 2018, and now we are the largest website for renting motorcycles, and we have more than 3,000 motorcycles available for rent, and they're much more affordable than going to a brick and mortar shop.
So I've rented bikes before, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And I want to go like a step further on this, because like part of what really attracted me, you shared the website with me and I went in there and I'm like, that's a Ducati Street Fighter, that's a V4, that's an Aprilia. Like if you're an enthusiast, your product allows people to enjoy the bucket list machines that they've always wanted to ride. Like, whereas when I rented motorcycles before, I used to be a rider's edge coach and teach the motorcycle safety foundation course at the Harley dealership. Cool. And at the time, I think I still had my R1. So, but my wife didn't like it. She didn't like sitting on the back of the sport bike with her butt up in the air and all that stuff, right? And so I would, go to the dealership and I'd say, hey, just give me a bike for the weekend. And it'd always be some kind of heritage Softail classic or something. You know what I mean? And I'm like, it's okay. Me and my wife, we can go get coffee on it. It's a good date bike. But time after time, I was either on, if I went through a neighboring dealership, I was on like a T100, or I was on a Heritage Softail Classic. And there was no like, I want to try the BMW. I want to try you know what I mean? So your product's really cool because you have the variety.
Exactly. So people can use it to test ride motorcycles. The main use case is you're traveling away from home. Your own motorcycle is not with you. And hey, why don't check out this BMW and go on a nice road trip, maybe explore some mountains in addition to the museums of that city, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, but in the long run, though, our goal is to make renting a motorcycle so affordable that why even buy one? I can access 3,000 motorcycles, 30,000 motorcycles. Like, why even bother when it's, or maybe not so much for the avid enthusiasts, but people that quit riding that, because of economic reasons or whatnot, bring them back into the sport and subscribe to a rider pass and access motorcycles only when they need them, when they want them, as opposed to committing to monthly payment responsibilities and all that stuff. Most of our motorcycles are available for delivery too. So, we can bring them to your house at, currently it's half the price of a traditional rental, but and if you subscribe, it's even less. But I think that we can continue as we scale and negotiate with the insurance company, with the payment processing company, as we get more data to predict the probability of an accident. We can continue to cut down the cost of renting a motorcycle until it's like as inexpensive as renting a car.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because on one hand, you need people to keep buying motorcycles because it creates your inventory, right? But but on the other hand, it's like you want to create this awesome service for folks that possibly don't have a garage space or don't want to have to maintain something. I think back to one of the dealerships that we taught the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course in Albuquerque was a beautiful BMW dealership. It was beautiful. And we'd be there after hours. And so that's kind of weird, right? Because it's like a candy store, right? Like someone left you alone with all the candy, right?
Yeah.
And I'd always look at all their used motorcycles. And this particular dealership would have motorcycles that were, maybe 2.5 seasons old, all traded in, and they would have 12 or 2,000 miles on them, 1,200 to 2,000 miles. And it would blow me away because I'm the kind of guy that when I own a motorcycle, I'm riding a motorcycle. Like,
Yeah.
I just sold my Hayabusa. It had 64,000 miles on it.
Wow.
I just delivered a Monster 800 to a customer that had 23,000 miles on it. I want to ride. Like, even though the traffic in California sucks, I still want to ride. And so when I would see people buy a motorcycle, keep it for 2 years, trade it in with 1,200 miles on it, it would really kind of, at the time, it would upset me because I'm like, how do people afford that?
I know, right? Yeah. And the average rider puts 3,000 miles per year on their bike, but that average is skewed by guys like you that ride 12,000, right? So most people put less than 2,000 miles per year. They use their bikes 10, 30 times a year max. And so that's kind of like the person that should be renting from rideshare instead.
Yeah. And so I thought about that when I was looking at your business model. And I do a lot of stuff on the internet, and people that listen to the Mañana No Mas podcast, they know that, okay, so I'm a membership and learning expert. I do a lot of things in WordPress. I do a lot of things with databases. And then I was looking at your site, and I was kind of blown away because I was like, there's a lot of users in there. Now, to your point, you said there's over 3,000 motorcycles, available now. Mm-hmm. But take me back to 2018. What did it look like? What did it feel like when you pushed the magic button and went live?
Well, super scary. The first motorcycle on the website was mine, and that's it. There were nothing else. And but we were really lucky that we were one of the first, and so we were able to get a lot of media attention, from motorcycles.com, MCN, Ride Apart. They all wrote about us at the same time, roughly. And so it created a spike in web traffic that week. And that's how we got our first 500 or so motorcycles, and basically seeded the marketplace. And because we're one of the first, it allowed us to rank on Google fairly quickly. And so those motorcycles started getting booking requests.
Yeah.
So in the first 6 months, we grew from 0 to 60, ironically, in revenue, to 60,000 in revenue, and per month. So it was pretty awesome success. Now, the insurance company, though, everyone is afraid of insuring peer-to-peer rentals because it's a whole new thing.
Yeah.
And nobody had done peer-to-peer motorcycle rentals at the time. So you mix two very risky things, peer-to-peer and motorcycles. Nobody was touching this risk. So in order to make it work, I was paying this, very, very niche insurance company and about $100 per rental day to make it work. And I knew that it wasn't as risky as they thought, that I was doing a good job of managing the risk with background checks and whatnot. And so I paid for that losses out of my own pocket and my credit cards. Like I had
Wow.
like, yeah, so much debt to make it work. But we grew really, really fast. And one of our customers was an investor. So he was very happy with the platform and gave us 300,000, to keep growing.
Nice. Nice.
So that helped me survive the winter of 2018 and renegotiate the insurance policy and get to a point where we were actually making a little bit of money on each transaction. Not
Yeah.
not not tech company money, but like some money. No longer losing, no longer paying off my credit cards, and because of that, we were able to invest more on marketing. And then in 2019, we grew from 60 to 250,000 a month, and investors were really happy, and they gave us another $500,000, which I reinvested into growth. And then in 2020, we were growing so fast. I mean, we're growing 200 to 300% year over year in February. So we were able to raise another $2.5 million from a proper venture capital investor. It's really difficult when you don't have industry experience or come from money, or
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so hard. But we were growing so fast that it was a no-brainer. And then the pandemic hit and our revenue went to zero.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the opposite of what I expected this story to be honest with you. I thought when the pandemic would have hit this with the social distancing and the motorcycle dealerships running out of bikes, I thought you would have been through the roof.
Yeah, well, what happens is that before the pandemic, 90% of our customers were people that were traveling, and didn't have their own motorcycle with them. And so that's
Yeah.
why, yeah. And then we recovered, but we were no longer growing. We were just 0% growth. And then this year, with the travel market bouncing back, we grew 150%, and we're doing really well. But
Nice.
yeah, but it's not 300% like we were doing before. So yeah, it's been challenging. Hopefully 2022 will be even better. But yeah, it wasn't easy along the way. Now, with that said, we're now at a scale where we can predict the probability that somebody will crash really, really well. There are some customers that will cause 10 times more damage than others, than the majority, right? And our ability to segment those customers like that allows us to charge lower prices to most people. And so because of that risk management piece, and that we do better than our competitors, we are actually, I think we're 4 to 10 times larger than the next closest peer-to-peer rental marketplace. So yeah, what's next for us is we need to build brand awareness among the motorcycle community. Most people don't really know we exist. And if we do that, we can probably grow from 3,000 to 30,000 motorcycles. And if we get to 30,000 motorcycles, we should be able to cut our costs enough that that people start really thinking like, instead of buying a motorcycle, I could just subscribe to rideshare. And that's when I think things are going to really take off. For the owner of the motorcycle, the ROI is amazing, right? Because bikes are not that expensive. You can buy a used one for 5,000, and then you can
Yeah.
make 70, 100 a day from that asset. So if you annualize that return, it's fantastic, even accounting for depreciation and maintenance. So from that perspective, it's not a problem. We have a lot of owners that started with one bike and now have 10, 30, and have turned this into a business. So from that point, we're not really too worried. It is yeah, supply, I don't think will ever be a problem. It's more like about how do we get to brand awareness without spending too much money, and how do we how do we rank higher on Google? How do
Yeah.
we, and but if we achieve the dream, then we would also like to enter other areas like off-road power sports, experiences, help teach more people how to ride motorcycles, and do all these kind of things uh, that the OEMs are not very good at, because their main function is to build motorcycles and sell them. What we do is more focusing. We monetize every time somebody rides a motorcycle. So what we're building is, we can create a lot of software products all around the motorcycle experience, and how to make it better, or how to get more people into the experience. And we don't need to worry about building motorcycles. That's not our thing. So like, we can, where the motorcycle industry has failed to recruit younger people into motorcycles, I think we can do a better job. And in fact, the average age of our people is like 36 years old.
Yeah. And so many, dude, as you're talking, I'm telling you, all these wheels in my head are just like, all these cogs are running into each other and smashing their gears together. But it's like, I think about Robert Panya's thing, and maybe it's not his thing, maybe it's just a representative of that thing, but they do the Strider bikes in the schools, right? So they give all
Yeah.
they give all the elementary school kids, a Strider bike, a balance bike, right? And the whole idea is, the earlier in life that we can get people on two wheels, the earlier in life we can introduce them to the freedom of movement on wheels, the better chance we have of grooming that person for a future customer in road biking, mountain biking, motorcycling, off-road, all those things. And so as you were talking, I was like, because it's like $4,000 to donate to a school, and then that $4,000 is good for 5 years, I think. And so I think of those things, I'm like, well, that would be a great marriage. That would be a really, because it's like you're investing in future riders. But then I was thinking, like, I have a DR 650 in my garage. I'm not riding my DR 650. I'm like, I should just put it on the site. I live in Southern California. Everybody wants to go dual sporting in Southern California, right?
Yeah.
And
If it's street legal, we allow it. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, I should probably just list my bike on the site. And then it's just all those wheels start to turn, and you go, okay, this makes more and more sense. And from a dealer perspective, like, I don't know if you're aware or not, but I worked for the OEMs for a decade. I worked for Ducati and Suzuki, and they gave me conversation space with people at Kawasaki, Triumph, KTM, and all those places. And you said it, a lot of other people say it, they talk about the OEM as being the manufacturer, but in the United States, the OEM is really a distributor.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know,
That's true.
they're not a manufacturer. And people get really hung up on that. They don't understand, like, the company's really worried about logistics. How do I get X number of widgets on a boat and get them to the United States, and then spread that inventory out and distribute that inventory? It's not like, they're not worried about assembly lines and building product. They're worried about moving product, right?
Yeah.
And so it's more like logistics and distribution. And because that's their mindset, and now because I've seen it from both sides, 20 years of dealer experience, a decade in the OEM world, those two worlds don't mesh well, and that's where a lot of that failure is. The OEM is trying to train the dealer to do business the way the OEM thinks the business should go, but the OEM doesn't own a motorcycle dealership. They don't understand how the dealer really wants to operate their business. And so there's these conflicts. So then I'm talking to you, and I'm thinking, well, if more dealers got involved in the rental side of it, or encourage their customers to get in the rental side of it, they could sell more bikes because people are recouping their investment in their own product, right? And people in their region, in their geographical area, are experiencing more machines that heighten the awareness, that bring them back to the dealership for a possible purchase.
I agree, and we are trying very hard to work with more dealerships. We have at least 8 on the platform, and the way they do it is not, the revenue from rentals is minimal compared to revenue from sales, but it brings foot traffic that wouldn't otherwise go to our dealership, so it might result in a sale 6 months down the road. And it also helps them, if somebody crashes a motorcycle, then it is a sale for them. Or maybe, it gives work to their service department, and so it complements the dealer's business really well. So it is an area that we're
Yeah.
trying to get better at. But unfortunately, we have a very small team still. So I hadn't had the opportunity to hire somebody to build those relationships yet, but it is something that we were trying to do in 2022. The potential is huge, right? Like, how many
Yeah.
sales are lost because you cannot offer a test ride because your insurance company does not allow it, right? Now in rideshare, it's not a test ride. People are paying for it, but at least you de-risk it, and it might help you close a sale that wouldn't otherwise happen.
I think about how many people, when I was doing corporate travel,
Mm.
how many people upgraded their corporate rental car, from the Toyota Camry to the Mustang GT, right? And then they show up at training class, because I used to be a corporate trainer, and they show up at training class with a Challenger, a Mustang, a Camaro or something. We had one mechanic show up with a Camaro one time, and I'll tell you, man, that the burnout that thing made in the parking lot was amazing. But a year, 14, 16 months later, I see this kid's Facebook. He's a grown man. I call him a kid because I'm in my 50s. But I see his Facebook, and he's standing in his driveway in front of his new Camaro, right? He probably would not have bought that Camaro if he didn't take it to class.
Yeah.
And it's these emotional triggers that, because the human purchasing event is an emotional event, and it takes time. And I always say seed and harvest for sales, right? Because nowadays it's not an impulse buy to go buy a $15,000 motorcycle.
Yeah, no,
It takes 6, 7, 8, 10 visits to really go, okay, this is the one I want. I'm going to sign on the dotted line. It's going to cost me $300 a month plus 150 a month in insurance. Bam, bam, bam. And on your example, people can say, you know what, before I do that, I'm going to go rent one for a weekend. Make sure it's what I really want.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we help de-risk those decisions, right? Like, the main reason why people select a motorcycle is comfort, and many dealers, they cannot give test rides. Like, that's just, yeah, there are a lot of more potential sales that are being missed out because of the lack of test rides.
Yeah, yeah.
And right, when you ride a motorcycle, in the first 10 minutes, you don't really know if how it's like. It's only after 3 hours that you really start feeling the back pain. Oh, maybe this angle is not for me, right? Like,
This
10
is
minutes
this
is
is
not
not
enough.
the motorcycle.
Yeah, yeah.
I always,
Mm.
when I first started at Ducati, I didn't like the Multistrada. I thought it was ugly.
Yeah.
I thought it was hideous. And everybody in the office would talk about, oh, I'm going to take the Multistrada this weekend, and I'm like, oh, well, good luck.
Yeah.
and we went on group rides, and I would take I had an S2R 800 Monster, and I loved that bike. I mean, it just felt like it was a piece of my body when I rode it. And we lived up in Northern California, Highway 9 and all that stuff. And everybody would jump on the Multistradas. And I was like, well, when the a variable timing Multistrada came out, I think that was 2015, had cruise control and stuff like that. I took one home for the weekend, and I caught myself going up Highway 9, 8-10 miles an hour faster than I ever did on my Monster. Completely comfortable, heated grips, cruise control, and it's super. It handled. It was comfortable. I rode it for probably 16 hours that weekend, and I was like, now I get it. It might not be the prettiest bike ever, but man, it sure is comfortable.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, adventure bikes are booming right now, especially among people over 50, right? Because at that age, do you really give a fuck about what people think about you? Nah, man. Like, I'm gonna ride a motorcycle because it feels amazing. I don't care what you think. This thing might be ugly, but hey, it rides amazing.
It's like the BMW 1250. It's so big. Like, when you see it coming down the road, the average person goes, I could never ride that. And then you get on one, and you're like, it feels like it has power steering, man. It's just like once you're on it, it's a beautiful machine.
Yeah, my dad has a KTM, the 1290.
Oh, that's a big bike too.
Yeah, yeah. I've ridden it in the Andean Mountains in Peru. It's comfortable. It's fun, but yeah, man. For a short person like me, though, I'm really excited about the Harley Pan America because it has that variable suspension that I hadn't had a chance to throw a leg on one, but because I'm in Austin, we only have 50 motorcycles here in Austin. If we had more, maybe we would have Pan America. But I'm pretty excited because adventure bikes are awesome. They're good at everything, but they are just, they're bad for short people, except for that
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. So riddle me this. What does the future like if you try to look into the crystal ball, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot, Guillermo, because I didn't preload you with this question, but we're talking growth, we're talking business grows, right? You get up to 30,000, 50,000 motorcycles in the database that you can rent out. What does the business model look like for you? Do you end up with like regional service centers or inventory centers, or I mean, does it become like an enterprise rent-a-car thing after time, or do you see it being completely peer-to-peer and fractured?
I see it being completely peer-to-peer and fractured. The problem with owning the motorcycles is that if you only use them for rentals, utilization is 150 days out of the year, but depreciation is, every day, right? So for people that already own a motorcycle, depreciation is going to happen no matter what. So they can rent them out at a lower cost because to offset their cost of use, but like they don't need to worry about it's not like they need to buy a new motorcycle every 2 years, like Hertz, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't envision ever owning motorcycles directly. Um, but I do envision like using self-driving technology so that you know these people so the experience becomes completely seamless. You go on the app, you order a motorcycle, the motorcycle arrives at your door, you just hop on it and ride, and that would be
Yeah.
really fucking cool. And then the owner of the motorcycle doesn't have to be there for the handoff. It's all, self-driving technology requires cameras, right? So like that would be really fucking cool. Now we're obviously like 10 years away from that, but that's kind of like where I see the long-term vision of the company.
And then not a motorcycle question, a business question.
Hmm.
Down the road, maybe you're already doing this, I don't know. Like how Uber's like in the finance game, somebody wants to drive for Uber, they can actually buy the car through Uber. And then now, Uber's making the money on the points and growing their business from a finance side as well as a logistics side. Is that something you guys think it would be something down the road?
I'm going to talk to the guys at Octane Lending this week again because I'm trying to partner with them. I don't think we will ever enter that space because there are great companies already doing it very well. But we but,
Yeah.
but we can certainly partner with them to help our owners get better deals, right? And buy more motorcycles because they are buying
Yeah.
a lot. They're buying a lot.
Because maybe I've thrown this out. So people in the manana no mas space that aren't into motorcycles or have never financed a motorcycle, even with great credit, you walk into a motorcycle store and you're like, I got $1,500 down. I want to buy an R6. I got $3,000 down. I want to buy a hyper motard. And you go to talk to the F&I guy, finance and insurance. And next thing you know, they're showing you paperwork at, 16, 17% interest, right? When you know that
Yeah.
in the car world, they're getting loans at 3%. So you're like, wait a minute, something's wrong here.
Right. There are two reasons, and I used to work in the car finance industry, right? So there are two reasons why that happens. Like number one is car companies in the US set up, like you said, these captive finance companies, and they subsidize these loans because they don't care about making money from the loan. They care about selling more cars.
Yeah.
But in the motorcycle space, I think Harley Davidson is the only one that, and Yamaha has they have that a little bit in the US, but
Yeah.
it's not nearly as, the competition is not as great as in the motorcycles as in the car space. So all you have to be is a little lower than the cars than your competitors. You don't have to drive it all the way to zero, and that's what they're doing. And then number two is the average loan size on the motorcycle industry is a lot smaller, right?
Yeah.
So 3% on a $30,000 car loan, yields the finance company, um, shit, let me do the math
Nine
in my
thousand
head.
dollars.
Like $1,000, right, in revenue. And but the cost of servicing that loan is roughly the same as servicing a $5,000 motorcycle loan. So now you need to extract $1,000 from the $5,000 motorcycle loan to create the same total profit per loan as a car.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah,
Yeah.
those two factors just make it hard on power sports. And then even worse is that there's like in the car space, leasing is heavily subsidized by car companies. they don't even do that in the motorcycle space, right? It's really risky for the car companies for the manufacturers to do leasing. Every other year they get burned with $1 billion loss from pricing the leases inappropriately, and so that's why I think they're not doing it in the motorcycle space. So yeah, all in all, um, a lot of factors that make it really hard to finance a motorcycle. That's why RiderShare is here for you. You rent out your motorcycle one weekend and you make your monthly payment, yeah, on the motorcycle. That's the
That
that's the
was a
beauty of.
fantastic segue, Guillermo. And by the way, I'm just going to say it. I was trying to seed my audience for a little bit of anger to try and raise the algorithm, right? And you took the anger right out of it. Like, I wanted people to be mad at the banks, and you're like, nah, it's totally justified. The banks can't do it. Listen, we've been on here for a while, dude. I could talk for hours about motorcycles and inventory and riding and you know, the Blue Ridge Parkway and, you know, riding Sandia in Texas, and but I want to value your time, right? So I think there's the seed of a really good conversation here. And you know, on the Power Sport Academy side, we actually have a long form webinar that we do at least twice a year, and maybe you'd be a really good guest for that too, to help dealers understand the advantage of motorcycle rental, because it's all about power sports. But
I would love to. Yeah.
But for today, I want to value your time. How can folks reach you? Like, how would you? We know that they could go to the RiderShare website, but how do you prefer that people get in touch with you?
My email address is guillermo@riders-share.com, and you said you're gonna post it on your website, right? Or
Yep, it'll be posted on the website, and it will be in the bottom of the description when this video posts.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I don't expect anyone to know how to spell Guillermo.
Guillermo. So it's a whole lot more fun when you say it with an accent. But so you've been in Texas, and you're down in Texas currently, right?
Austin, Texas. Yeah.
Austin, Texas. So you're down there with our friend Joe Rogan that left California not too long ago.
Yeah, I hadn't ran into him or Elon yet, but yeah, they're driving rent prices way too high here in Austin. It's insane, dude. Yeah.
He seems like an outgoing kind of guy. You should get on the podcast and give him a good deal on renting motorcycles. Him and his friends could probably wreck a few for you.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. I just don't know how.
All right. Guillermo, thank you so much for your time. I really, really do appreciate it. This will be out in a few days. And folks, if you ride, but you had to give up your bike, if you got a basket case sitting on a lift in your garage and you're jonesing to get out and twist the throttle on something, check out Guillermo's project. Get in there and go to RiderShare, book yourself a bike, get that going through your veins again, get re-inspired. I'll tell you, I talk a lot on the Mañana No Mas show about resetting. I talk a lot about working hard when it's time to work and playing hard when it's time to play. And RiderShare is the place to go when you want to play.
Thanks,
all right.
Greg.
Thanks, Guillermo. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.